Hello and welcome. Today we are going to dive into the very vast topic of voice. And if you are a writer, if you are working on your book, maybe it's your first book, maybe you are working on a series of books, you will probably know in general what I'm talking about. But I really want to talk about it in a deeper level, especially for the people out there that are struggling with owning their voice in their life, in their business, in their social media, and of course, in their writing and even speaking. I've had this issue before in my life. So let's get started. Now, when people say voice, most often we think of it in terms of our literal voice, right? So when I recorded the Audible for Life and Love Lessons, which is my second book, I actually lost my voice. I lost my literal voice during the audio recording. And I remember many years ago when Sienna, my niece who was on that podcast from last week, and she'll be on again next week, so stay tuned. When she was little, one day when we were in the car with my sister and I, it's before Sydney was born. Well, no, Sydney had to have been born, but anyhow, it's my second niece. And Sienna goes, Auntie Mel, you're so loud. So again, literal conversations about voice. But those things end up impacting us as we go through our lives, right? So if you're someone that is in the corporate world or was in the corporate world, you probably have many stories of when your voice was shut down. You were told to, not speak up in a meeting, not share something, that your idea was wrong, that it was off base. Those are parts of your voice and play into your confidence. Or things from when you were a childhood. If your parents said, for you to rethink how you said something or, kind of made you feel shameful about something that you said, those are also parts of your voice. So when I started to put a little bit more context behind what I wanted to share in this podcast, I started like Googling to see, what do people Google about in terms of voice? So for the most part, it was the very literal voice, the sound of your voice, how loud you are, and being able to actually literally speak. And the second piece was parlaying into the confidence piece that I just mentioned, that having a voice and sharing your voice is part of owning, your own aspect of yourself in terms of your confidence and showing up as a very like assured speaker. And those are all very relative things. But if I were someone beginning this journey or really trying to start to get grounded to who I am as a person, I would probably still be very confused. So what I wanted to share in this video was that figuring out voice is quite a journey. I'm going to be really, really honest. It is quite a journey. And you may have a lot of ups and downs in this journey in trying to figure it out. And that's okay. That is okay. And what's really funny is when I was reading a book that is going to be something that is part of the podcast for next week with my niece Sienna, I was also watching her, the author's interviews on YouTube. And she said that she spent a lot of time going back and forth, getting the voice of her character, the lead character, the main character, the MC in her book dialed in. And as I was reading this book and I was watching this YouTube video, I'm like, oh yeah, and she did an amazing job. It's incredible. It's a really cool book. And I like, should I share what book it is? So, but it is Circe by Madeline Miller. So just really cool book. Anyhow, more on that next week with my niece Sienna. So stay tuned. But what was fascinating was that she said that. because it is. Getting the voice of a character as you're writing is probably just as hard, if not harder, than trying to figure out your own voice. So I'm not going to dive in this video. I'm going to refer another video that I watched that I think is absolutely incredible in terms of actual character writing for voice. And it's from Abbie Emmons. And if you are not subscribed to her YouTube channel, I highly recommend her channel. And I will put the video in the playlist that I have created that is all of the other YouTubes that I'm listening to that I really liked and that wanted to share with the audience because I'm on this journey too. And what I think is a great video, maybe you will think is a great video too. So the name of the video is called How to Rock Your Character Voice. So if you are working on character voice as a writer like I am, I do highly recommend this video, and I'm not trying to regurgitate any of this information. So just give you to the original source who has a lot more experience than me. But what was fascinating, circling back to Circe by Madeline Miller, and I have that right here, when she was talking about voice and she was mentioning that it was very challenging to write the voice and that it took some time, it made me think of another YouTube video that I had watched that I can't remember who it was. It might feel really bad. But the YouTuber was talking about what editors and publishers look for when they're looking for, really good books or really good scripts or screenplays. And that is a unique voice, a unique narrative voice. So it really all clicked for me that, I've had a personal struggle with owning my voice over the years, and it's not what my niece said to me. It has absolutely nothing to do with that, but my own shadow side in terms of how I am as a contrarian, and that a lot of people don't get that, and really trying to figure out, where does my voice play in part in terms of how I show up, whether it's showing up on social media, showing up on YouTube. I always think that anyone who watches my YouTube videos is a next level thought leader. So I always appreciate anyone who is here because my things are just not basic and fluffy. But they're more thought provoking, and that's how I am. So I like to share in that way and really owning that. So when a publisher or editor is looking for content, looking for books, they're going to be looking for your unique voice. This is where I'm going. So it's really important for you to figure yourself out and show up as such, because that will then parlay into your writing, into your social media, into your content. And again, it's a journey. So I would say that I probably had a unique voice when I was younger. And then I lost my voice over the years from corporate America, from then comparing myself to other people online, other people that were just much, much more ahead of me, and me thinking that I need to like dumb myself down in terms of content and what I share. And that's not really true because that's just not energetically aligned with who I am. I'll give you another example. I was working with a client and he was really struggling with showing up on social media. And those are often the things that we think we need help with, right? How to show up on social media, how to create content. But often it's much deeper than just like, taking an Instagram course or taking a LinkedIn course. There's often some underlying layers that need to be unveiled. So what was happening was he was showing up as being very snarky. And in actuality, he's actually super funny. And people really do like him when they get to know him. So underneath those layers of snark was just some childhood BS that was going on in his head still that he just needed to clear and forgive himself for, because it was showing up more as envy and comparison with other people in his lane and was causing his content to appear to be more snarky than funny. And so we worked on clearing those things so his own unique voice could come out, which is actually super funny and very compassionate. And this person is extremely talented at what they do. See where I'm going? So you have to sometimes like do the work to unveil your own unique voice, which could be very buried after years and years of all the stuff that we have to deal with in this world. Again, family saying things to you that may not be so kind. Could be again corporate, could be work, could be life challenges, could be relationships, could again be social media comparison, things you read, things that put ideas in your head that just really aren't true, and they're definitely not your truth. So when I started to then do a little bit more deep diving, now I'm not someone who's big into research, I'll be really honest, so you could probably knock yourself out and fill your boots on Googling. But I did end up finding an article that was written in 2015, and I wrote it down just to give it credit here. It was in 2015 on a website called Public Words, and it was 20 questions to help you find your voice. And it was by a man named Nick Morgan. And I'll put the link in there too. And I thought that his article was probably the closest thing I could find to really starting to help people crack the nut on understanding and finding your voice. Now, I will also say that it actually didn't really crack the nut, but it was a good starter place. And then someone in the comments put a comment in regards to that, like asking like, okay, I get this, but tell me out like a little bit more. So basically then he said, which I totally would agree with, is finding your voice means that you're not using watered down language. You're not recycling other people's things, and you're really showing up as the best version of yourself, right? So if you dial back to the client that I was helping, he was showing up, as snarky, but the best version of himself was really that he was funny, that he is funny, and he is really compassionate, right? So we just had to clear the layers and work through a lot of the shadows, the shadow side, to create some balance so he could really show up and own his voice and feel very confident. So dialing back to the confidence piece and really show up with full confidence and self-assuredness in terms of what he stands for online, in terms of the products he sells. So there is a deep dive that you really need to do if you're trying to understand your voice and how you show up. And that also relates to your character development too. So I really love Abbie's video because she talks about manipulation and she talks about all like kind of the yucky, shadowy things, but those things are part of your voice. They truly are part of your voice and how you show up. So as you work through those things and understand them and either release them or forgive them or accept them, whatever piece of understanding your shadow side you need to do, those things become part of how you show up and how you speak to others or how you write or how you use social media or even to show up in your life with relationships. So another example that had come to my mind with the election now being over, it was very fascinating for me to watch as a contrarian, was about Donald Trump and Kamala. And this is not a political toss either way, let's be honest. People get very upset nowadays with a lot of things about that. This is truly just to look at this as an adult and look at it from a point of view of like how people show up. So one thing I noticed about President Trump's campaign this time around was he really showed his compassionate side more, his how he really loves people and really cares. And he did it very naturally. It wasn't manufactured. It was just straight off the cuff. And that is how he showed up more in this campaign versus the campaigns in the past. The campaigns in the past, I would say, were more aggressive and more of a biting tone. And I remember talking to people over the years, and they would be like, "Gosh, I really love Trump. I just wish he'd like tone it down, or I wish he'd like zip it." I would hear comments like that, and I always thought to myself too, like someone who watched The Apprentice. I'm someone who was in the Trump network way back when. Gosh, that's like a whole other can of worms in the MLM world, something you don't hear about, but he had started an MLM. And, many people were, Trump fans before he got into politics, let's be honest. And so he, when I heard him speak for the Trump network, I was like blown away. Ryan and I were like, oh my gosh, like he's amazing. There's so much like love and compassion. And anytime I've ever met someone that has met him before has said the same thing. So where I'm going with this campaign really pulled that piece out from him versus in the past. And the difference with Kamala is when I would ever watch her speak, and you could truly, if you go to her speech where she concedes, and she that was the day after the election. I'm like, gosh, I feel like she's trying to talk like Obama. And Obama's an amazing speaker. Like, if you were to say Obama's not a great speaker, I would like literally like be like, are you alive? He's an amazing speaker. And I always felt like whenever I watched Kamala, she was trying to pattern Obama. Now, you literally can't do that. Like you can't try to copy someone else's voice. Your voice is your voice from God. Like this is how you were designed. This is you. This is your energy. This is how you show up. And so I always felt like her talks were so manufactured. And I would have really liked to have just heard her talk. I would have really liked to heard her talk. And I remember when I heard Joe Rogan say that, I was like, yes, I totally agree. I would have liked to just hear Kamala speak and not this manufactured version of herself, right? So, what this podcasting did for Trump, and I'm sharing this so you can kind of think about how you show up and the tools that you are using online, whether you're writing or speaking for social media or even in your business, was that, he just spoke and hers was more manufactured and contrived. And I would dare say that she was likely coached on doing this, right? Like somehow coached on being more like someone else. And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work because your voice is your unique stamp, is your unique energy stamp, and no one can copy it. No one can copy it. So worrying about, comparing yourself versus other people online is just holding you back from showing up as your true self and you owning your voice. And that's part of the journey. Like I definitely had to go through some of this myself, being that my voice is more fierce but loving. And so I understood that. I have the 51 gate of shock. A lot is in my human design and really just embracing like what is my voice, but also just like I coached my client, like aiming for some type of balance, right? Talking more with a smile, which is not naturally how I speak, and just really trying to work on some different aspects of myself so my energy comes through in a different way and shows up differently for more people, right? So in a way, it's kind of like when I saw how Donald Trump was showing up for this election and showing up as more of his compassionate, caring self. And yes, there's still that fighter in him, of course, and that doesn't go away. These things don't go away. You just kind of learn to have more balance in how you show up and how you own your voice. And things just then tend to resonate with people a little bit better, you could put it. Well, he won the election, right? And he won the election on many fronts. But I do really think that that was like a big piece of it and really got more people behind him and actually then gave other people more confidence to speak up about different things like that that really added to like the whole picture. Again, it's balance. It's really working on these things and really starting to understand and do the deep dive. So if the questions that are in that blog help you on that path, I think that that's amazing. And again, I'm more than happy to share this man's blog. But I do also think that for me personally, the advice I would give someone is when you create a piece of content and you put it out there in the world, whether it's something you wrote, a social media post, or even a conversation with somebody, like where are you doubting yourself? Where are you saying, gosh, should I have said that? Where are you overthinking? So that's looking at like the shadow piece of yourself and really contemplating that, not in an overthinking way, but more of a contemplation way. And those to me are two different things. And then looking at the things that light you up, that make you laugh, that make you go, oh, I just really love this post, and sticking to that. It's really important to stick to that and not go back and go, oh, now I'm like looking at her post over here and I'm comparing and, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Like, please stop that. Stop that. Like, if you love something and you're laughing your butt off as you post it, then have fun with it and like go and move and get off social media so you're not putting yourself into a mind loop and a whole mental discussion that brings down the energy and just makes you doubt yourself. And then you try to show up differently next time and it just doesn't, because that's not your voice. So we all probably have like this little bit, maybe like a 25% things that we can work on to soften or get a little better at and showing a different side of us. But for the most part, it's really about owning your voice fully and showing up as such. So I hope this video really resonates. I did a little research, but I also wanted to speak more off the cuff because I do think that this topic is just super important. It transcends over so many facets of our life, of our business. Again, writing books, writing blogs, and in this world where there's now so much AI and so much content in general, you have to. It is absolutely crucial for you to figure out how to own your own voice so you stand out. So you stand out. And I could go on and on about this in terms of the sport fishing world. My husband and I own Good Karma Sport Fishing and educational programs together. And we work hand in hand on pretty much all the things except for the actual fishing. That's not my gig. But he's the master at the fishing, but I help with all the social media, all the content creation, all the things behind the scenes. He writes the majority of the blogs, as I mentioned in another podcast, but I read them. And what's so fascinating is, and I'm always so excited about, is it's truly his voice. It is his experience and his voice. He does not use AI to create blogs. Okay. So we use Jasper as a tool to see if we're missing any SEO words, if something could be written a little stronger, but we do not use AI to create content, to create this video. I didn't even go into Jasper to do this. I went to Google for like some words, right? And exactly what I shared is exactly what I did. But we don't have AI driving our content. And when you look at all of our content, especially what we create for Good Karma Sport Fishing and Coaching, because that is the driver, and it really shows because we're different. And other people, you're just like scrolling, scroll, 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 scroll. And even brands now, brands are supposedly hiring influencers, but they're not even sharing those posts because they're still stuck with trying to keep this bland point of view and vision out there, but it's actually just becoming more noise. So when you own your voice and you show up as such in an authentic way, you are just going to stand out even more. And that's positive because of all the content that's out there of how things are very boring and basic or just generated by AI, and people know. So I hope you love this podcast. Again, stay tuned for next week. Sienna, my niece Sienna Krieg, is going to be leading that podcast. I'm super excited. And we already have our topic. And as I mentioned, a little sneak peek, I'm going to be referring to Circe by Madeline Miller. And I can't remember the name of the book that she's going to refer to, but I'll let her share that. And if you haven't caught my other two videos on writing, which is a series I'm doing, and we'll just see how long this goes, right? If y'all like it and are showing up to watch it, and I still have lots to say, then we'll keep going. But last week's video with Sienna was a huge hit, and I really appreciate everyone for watching it. And the one before it was me sharing some tips that are more next level than other writing tip videos that you've watched out there. So I hope you go and watch that too if you haven't watched that yet. So connect with me. My website is melindavanfleet.com. If you're interested in working one-on-one, that is the type of coaching I do because I see so many things that you literally cannot crack the nut at by just taking an online course or working with a mastermind or Facebook groups. And that's really how I love to help people. So thank you so much. Bye for now.